In this lesson, we'll cover elevations. So in our previous lesson, we looked at creating building sections or a section in certain parts of your Revit model. Here we're going to look at creating elevations. Typically, an elevation would be used for an exterior elevation or an elevation of a different part of the building. So we'll walk through creating an elevation of an exterior face of this actual building. And then from there, we can decide what elements are on or off within the elevation. So to generate the elevation, let's go to the View tab. And then on the View tab in the Create panel, you have a drop-down for elevation. One is elevation. The other is framing elevation. For this example here, we're just going to use elevation. Now, after you click elevation, the ribbon will change, and you're actually holding the elevation marker with your mouse. And it's wanting you to place now the elevation marker for a location of wherever you want to place it. Now, if you zoom in and you look at that elevation marker, you'll notice it's pointing in a direction. In this case, mine is pointing to the left or west. If you hit the tab key right now, that will cycle the actual position of the actual pointer. In other words, what direction the elevation will lead to or point to with this elevation mark. Now, some elevation marks have multiple elevations. In this case here, we only want one. And I want it to point toward my building model. So what I'll do is I'll hit the tab key until the arrowhead points directly north or up. Once it points north, I'll left-click my mouse to place that actual elevation. And now it's going to prompt me to place another elevation. Well, at this point, I'm done placing elevations, so I'm just going to click the Modify tab. Now, the elevation marker is different than the section marker. The elevation marker, by default, does not show an elevation line. However, if you click on the circle of the elevation marker, you'll see the four arrows. The one that is active is checkmarked, and you could checkmark the other ones to have other elevations depicted by this one elevation marker. In this case, we're not going to do that. Just click away from the actual elevation marker. This time, click on the darkened arrow of the actual elevation marker. Once you do that, you actually see the elevation line and you see the depth of the elevation. Now, to adjust the depth of the elevation, there are two arrows in the middle that allow you to drag the depth of how deep you want to see into this actual elevation. And maybe I want to see this entire wing. So I can drag my elevation marker and the depth to include the entire wing. Now I can adjust the length and the width by using the icons, the little circles on the right and on the left, the handles. And once I'm done, I can click off of that, and then that is adjusted and set. Now the properties of this elevation can be set in the Properties panel. To do that, go and click on the actual arrow of the elevation marker again. Once you do that, you'll see the properties for this elevation marker. Now this is where I can go in and I can set what elements I'd like to see in the elevation. Now again, you could do it here or you could do it on the actual elevation. One thing I want to note is what is the elevation name. So if I scroll down, I can see the name is elevation 1-A. Go ahead and click off of the elevation marker on your screen and zoom back out. Now I can see our elevation marker we just created, and I can see others around the actual building as well. In the browser on the lower left, let's scroll down to our new elevation. We'll go to Elevations, Mechanical, and then here's our new elevation, elevation 1-A, and double click it. This will open the elevation in its fully open mode without being cropped. To crop this, what I could do is select the crop box and grab one of the handles and drag the handles to actually resize the actual crop around the elevation. You can adjust this as to how close or how far away the crop is from the actual building itself. Same as in some of the other examples, if we do not want to see the actual crop box itself, I can turn that off in the properties. So I can scroll down to where I see crop region visible, and I can uncheck mark that. That'll actually turn off the element within the elevation. I can also override the visibility graphics of what I'm currently looking at. To do that, I can scroll back up and go to the Edit button to the right of Visibility Graphics Override, And here I can turn on or off elements I don't want to see in this elevation. Just click cancel for this example. Now I can do the same thing as well for annotations. I can go to the visibility graphics and override those there as well. Another thing I may want to do is change the scale. The view scale is in the lower left part of your view window. Right now mine is set to 1 to 50. If you click on that, this is where you can change the scale of the given view. Right now I'm going to leave it at 1 to 50. As a review, what we covered in this lesson was elevations. We looked at how to create a new elevation marker using the elevation tool on the View tab. We dropped that marker, and we looked at how to position the actual arrow on the elevation mark as to what direction the elevation points, north, south, east, or west. We then looked at displaying the elevation line and the depth of the elevation, or how far into the object or model we see. And then we looked at the elevation in itself and how to control the various properties of that elevation on what we want to see, the different lines, the different annotations, and also the crop. From there, we can actually adjust a variety of different other elements within the elevation itself.